Hello, everyone, and welcome to the end of the year Rumcast episode. My name is John Gulla. Hosting with me is the person who won my award last year for best co-host, Mr. Will Hookinga. And this is the Rum podcast that talks all things rum related with the people who love and shape it. Will, this is always one of my favorite episodes of the year. We get to reflect upon our favorite rums, our favorite experiences, some of the talks that we had with people, and just we don't even know each other's yet. So it's kind of this live working out of like, hey, how aligned are we or how different are we on some of our picks?
It's also like I have guesses as to what some of yours might be. So I'm interested to see how surprised I am with certain things and stuff like that. But I look forward to this every year. Honestly, this I can't remember if you mentioned it or not, but this is the 5th time we've done this now.
Yeah.
And I think about this. At least starting in March, I start to really start taking notes and stuff. Like, I feel an obligation. Obligation sounds bad, but I want to do the year justice, right, and make sure I don't miss anything.
Yeah.
And I think this year I faced some of the most challenging decisions ever of any of the years we've done. I don't know if that's unique to just the slate of rums that I tasted this year, or if it's more just after doing this for a longer period of time. I'm not sure which it is, but I just felt like I had really tough decisions. And when I say tough decisions, it was there were multiple deserving rums for so many categories to me.
I'm with you there.
Whereas I think in past years, not to say there haven't been tough calls, but I think in past years there were more categories where I just had a clear, strong feeling on this was far and away my favorite. And this year it was like, well, this one was my favorite, and this one was my favorite, and I really like this one too. And so I've just been sweating it out the past 3 days or so, really tasting back through stuff and just trying to narrow it down. And it's been tough, man.
Yeah, you get started a lot earlier than I do. I at least give it till August or September before I start kind of highlighting things and remarking. I mean, I take notes throughout the year like you do, but it's harder to pick. I almost feel like you have to wait a little bit before you're starting to coalesce around some of these things. And I will say, Will, you said how hard it is. I agree with you. I thought when I started the exercise, like I had, we had the categories that we'll talk about in a little bit, and I thought I had good picks for each of these, and I was kind of like, all right, no sweat this year, I've got this, until I really sat down and started retasting through these rums and trying to really put, pen to paper or digital version of pen to paper, and then it got a lot more difficult. Question for you: did you try more quality rums this year than you think other years, or do you think it's just something different with this year?
Now, I don't necessarily think the volume I tried, maybe it went up a little bit, but it's not like massive or something. I think it was just the unique group of rums that came out this year and that I was able to try this year. So, but yeah, I mean, this is an exercise I look forward to every year. If you're joining us for the first time for this show, we call it our year in review episode. John and I, it's a chance for us to pick out what our favorite rums were from the past year from a selection of categories that we made up and have tweaked and added to over the years. And I think we maybe added one more this year. But John, do you want to unveil the categories for the people listening?
Yeah, so we try to keep these, narrow and make sense, right? We don't want to have a category for everything, but rum is so broad and diverse, and we talk about this often, that you really do have to have some guidelines or some guidance into what you're trying to do to accomplish, or else it would be incredibly hard to just pick favorites. Mm-hmm. So with that, we have the categories as unaged molasses rum, unaged cane juice, aged rum 5 years or less. Then we have aged rum over 5 years in age. And then we have the new to me rum. So that's a category where we say, hey, maybe this is a pre-existing product, but it's new to us.
Right.
Best value rum. So clearly we're looking at value with that. And then most surprising rum for us, which is a fun category, I think, always.
Always a good time.
And then, of course, we get down to business with our overall best rum of the year. And then we get to, play around with some interesting things here with Am I the Asshole category. So This is the category that we created. I think it was last year was the first time where
Actually, we've done it. This is the third year. Yeah, yeah. This is
Wow.
becoming a tradition. But
All right.
yeah, basically the category where, if we're feeling a little lower than a lot of the reactions that we've seen on another rum, it's our chance to be like, was something wrong with me in that I didn't like this rum as much as other people? It's not to say
Right.
we hated these rums necessarily,
Right.
but just
Yeah,
like
exactly.
other people really like this and I can't get there. So
Yep.
yeah, that's what that's for.
Okay. And then we love hearing if you're the asshole or I'm the asshole.
Yeah,
after
definitely
that
let
from
us know if
people.
we're the assholes. It's always
Yep.
a good time.
And we finish up with Distillery of the Year, which we did last year, and a new category this year, which only makes sense, which is the IB or Independent Bottler of the Year.
That's right. A new one. We keep
yeah.
adding, 10 years from now, there's going to be 40 categories in this. Actually, there's not, but I think we're arriving at a good amount here. We've
We're gonna
refined
be like
it over
the
the years.
Oscars, yeah, where you have to
Exactly.
like rush people off stage.
It's like 20
we only
Best
get 30
Picture
seconds.
nominees. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm excited to dive into these. But, John, I understand before we get into this that you have a little something that you've prepared.
I do. Last year I heard from a few people, hey, where was your Christmas song this year? After releasing, what was it, the 12 Days of Christmas the year before, Rum Christmas. And, I was inspired. So I figured I'm going to take another crack at it and let's do something, give the people what they want. And what they want is more Rum Christmas songs.
Apparently so. And I've not heard this yet, so this is going to be my first time hearing this live on the show. So I have no idea. I don't know if you're parodying another song. I don't know if you have written an original number, perhaps with some jingle bells involved. I don't know what's going to come when I hit play
No
on this.
idea.
All right, here we go. That's familiar.
I'll drink rum for Christmas. You can plan on me. Please have rows of agricoles and bottles of cask strength ABV. Christmas Eve will find me with a daiquiri. I'll drink rum this Christmas, if only drank by me. I'll bring rum for Christmas. You can count on me. A constant flow of coquito and glasses of rum cream. Christmas Eve will find me with a hot toddy. I'll bring rum this Christmas if you'll drink some with me.
Oh my God. Exceeded my expectations. That was amazing, not only in lyrical quality, but in musical quality. Some of those nice jazzy chords had me feeling it over here. That was
Yeah.
amazing.
I love that jazz, man. It hit me right here. There was just something that spoke to me this year that I said, we need something that's a little bit more of that kind of vibe. So
Well, it was poignant. It was great. The hot toddy line, it did exactly what you intended it for it to do, which I almost like record scratch stopped it and said, like, you realize that's not a rum drink, right? Because I have to be the know-it-all on the podcast. That's my role. And then you had that very nice. What did you do? How low did you have to take your voice down for that digitally?
Oh, I had to do some vocal techniques there. No, there was just a pitch modulation thing that I could do. I considered having you do that part and
Oh, wow.
asking you to just do that in isolation. But then I figured, I don't know how that would work out. So maybe in a future version, though, Will, if you can record just doing your best rum hot toddy for me.
One of these days, I'll get a feature on one of these annual John Gulla classics.
You need to give me some guitar, get me some picking going, and let's do it.
I can do it. Oh man. Okay. Well, I feel like is this available for download, John? Can they find this on Spotify? Where can people get this?
No. I think
you and John Shu need to do an album of duets of these and put it on Spotify for everybody.
I think he has the right creative juices to get it there, and we should absolutely do that. And Eric K, yeah, he could do. We can get in a studio and do some stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, my $5 studio isn't great here, so absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, let's take a quick break and then get down to it.
I'll bring rum this Christmas if you'll drink some with me.
All right, after the dulcet tones of John Gulla, we are back to get into our favorite rums of the year in the categories we all mentioned. Really quickly, before we do this, I did want to have a quick note in here just on how we source rums throughout the year, how we try these rums. I know when I read reviewers and things like that, which I don't know that these are necessarily reviews, we're discussing our favorite rums of the year, but anyway, I always appreciate knowing how they got the rum they were reviewing, that sort of thing. So there's a variety of ways that we end up with rums we talk about on the show. One of which is if we are having a producer on the show, they'll often offer to send us samples, which we'll, always accept. Sometimes we ask for samples if we're inviting someone on the show. When we make the request, we typically offer to pay for shipping. Not everyone takes us up on that. We never promise reviews or anything like that. Basically, you can't pay us to have your rum mentioned, discussed, or featured on the show in any capacity. Outside of that, sometimes producers will just send us rum unprompted, like they haven't been asked to be on the show, but they get in touch and want to send us stuff, and like we accept that, and again offer no promise that the rum is going to come up on the show. Sometimes it does, but if it does, it's always because it's something that's interesting or worth talking about to us in some way. Sometimes we exchange samples with listeners or friends of the show, things like that. And finally, a lot of the time, we're just buying rums ourselves, either for our own personal enjoyment or to do something for the show. Like earlier this year, John, we did our Guide to UK Rum episode.
Right.
So we bought a good deal of those rums we ordered from the Whiskey Exchange. We also swapped some samples with a friend of the show. And yeah, so if you're wondering like how we try rums throughout the year, that's how we do it. I know there are some reviewers out there who don't accept samples, and I totally respect that. I think for us, we just view it as if we're going to have someone on the show, it's always better if we're able to taste their output, what they've been doing, just to kind of inform the conversation. But it's just a way for us to try as much as we can and hopefully deliver as unbiased takes as possible on it.
And also, there's a community, right? And so there's a lot of rum samples in the community that I think that's part of why we do this, right? It's also a community aspect. And so for us, like you said, the main point is, hey, we're not gonna be bought and paid for with anything. This is our podcast, and we get to express our views independent of any of that, which is nice.
All right, so without further ado, we're going to kick this off with Unaged Molasses Rum. That's right, John. Unaged Molasses Rum is where we're going to start. And I'm just going to come right out with it with my selection for my favorite Unaged Molasses Rum of the year, which was, I feel like we should have a drum roll before the first reveal. It was Pele's Fury, the Martinique Grand Arôme Rum from Raising Glasses, an independent bottler out of the U.S., So this is a column still rum produced at Le Gallienne Distillery in Martinique in their Grand Arôme style. So This is a far cry from the rum agricoles you might expect from Martinique. This is, as the category requires, it's actually a molasses rum. Very long, extended fermentation. It's bottled at 62.5% ABV. And John, the way that I really came to fall in love with this rum was through using it the way that I would use a Jamaican overproof, because, you know, the 62.5% ABV is right around what Jamaican overproofs are typically at. And so I found in my favorite cocktails that feature those rums, if I subbed in this Martinique Grand Arome, it works similarly, because I think it's designed somewhat similarly to those rums in that it's really bold, really flavorful. It's got some funk to it, you know, different from a Jamaican funk, but I would describe it as a funk nonetheless. And to me, it has some of those like funky rotten fruit flavors that are like somewhat akin to the Jamaican overproofs, but it also brings this savory twist to drinks a little bit that I haven't really found in many other rums. And so I got this, I think sometime in the summertime, and just really enjoyed using it throughout the summer in a lot of drinks. And yeah, it's become a staple.
Yeah, it's a great pick, and I'll save everyone the suspense. This doesn't happen often.
Oh no!
But this is also my pick for Unaged molasses rum this year.
Starting off with a twin pick. That's amazing. You know what?
I will say, go ahead.
I was just going to say, of all the categories that I went through for this year, this was the one where, as I was reviewing what I tasted throughout the year, I was like, I feel like I didn't try that many new unaged molasses rums like that came out this year. And we try as much as possible to do stuff that came out within the calendar year.
Yep.
Sometimes it might be stuff that got like released slightly at the end of the previous year, but for the most part we try to stick to that. And that's not to say like, well, I had to pick something, so I'll pick this. Like I'm super pleased with picking this. I thought it was great. But there just wasn't a lot of other stuff that stood out. And I know at the end of the episode, we're going to mention some stuff that we knew were prominent releases, but that we just weren't able to try. And there are a few rums that fit this category that I just wasn't able to get to. So we'll save that for the end. But yeah, interesting. Tell me your thoughts on this rum.
Well, so number one, I agree with pretty much everything you said. And again, that doesn't always happen with us.
It really doesn't.
Yeah, and it's just a phenomenal example of a Grand Arome, right? And that's really kind of what I see it as, is exemplary for its category and what it is. These Grand Aromes are hard to come by for us, right? There's not too many of them out there. There was a Holmes Key Grand Arome release a year ago.
From Reunion,
From Reunion, right. And so, you know, Grand Arome rums in general, like you mentioned, molasses from a column still in this style, they're not easy to find and they're rare. But that said, this one does everything I think it needs to do to stand out as a great and shining example of a Grand Arome rum. And one at this point, you know, in this case, I should say from Martinique, which is, you know, it doesn't get much better than that in terms of the quality and what's being brought out here. I will say that I had a pick in mind also that I'm not sure it qualified, and you might be knowing what I'm talking about here, which is the Worthy Park Overproof.
Yeah. Okay, well, so yeah, I'll spoil it a little, but that's on my list of rums that I unfortunately was not able to try. But I was also going back and forth in my mind because I was like, I know it's molasses and cane juice. I feel like you could qualify it probably for the molasses round, just because I haven't seen the exact blend breakdown, but I'm just guessing it's a higher molasses, you know, a higher amount of molasses rum than cane juice rum, but that's kind of speculation on my point.
I haven't seen enough good evidence of what the blend is yet.
Yeah.
But it felt like, well, if we're really going to do an unaged category for molasses and an unaged category for cane juice, one that kind of falls in between is rough to pick. So, you know, I didn't end up going with that for that reason. I also think the Monty Musk Overproof was a really good example this year. I don't know if you had to try that.
I did try that one. Yeah, it is very good. Yeah.
So that's
it's a worthy
nice
addition.
runner-up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's the rare crossover occurrence here where both of us are picking, and congratulations to Raising Glasses for this release. It's a winner.
Yeah. Hopefully there won't be too many more of those on this episode because we don't want it to be boring. You know, we want some sparks to fly. But we've got Unaged Cane Juice coming up next. So John, why don't you lead this one off for us?
All right. So I will do this, and I'm really hoping you didn't pick my pick because I think it is a standout pick. And I had trouble finding anything else that I think stood out to me as much as this year.
That's an interesting point because this was one of the categories that I agonized over the hardest.
Okay. Well, I did have some others that I considered, but to me, this one really was a no-brainer, and that is the Cartier 30 from Alambique Serrano.
All right.
This is a Oaxacan cane juice rum bottled at 70.3 ABV, or 30 on the Cartier scale, hence the name. For such a ridiculously high proof, it drinks ridiculously and dangerously good as a neat sipper, a tea punch, and it also makes a really bomb boozy daiquiri too. So this was a bottle that was in heavy use for me this year. I'm taken by how good this product really is. It oozes authenticity. In my mind, there's nothing out there that's really standing up to this. And between this and what, Alambique is doing with the Cañada, some of the aged blends from Alambique Serrano and the single casks, you got to give it up to them right now. They are bringing the heat, and this release is amazing. If you haven't got it, you really need to find this one.
John, we're going to go 2 for 2.
Oh, no way!
So I considered for a split second waffling and going to my other pick that I mentioned. I agonized between 2 rums for this just so we wouldn't have 2 of the same in a row. But I just, this one won out for me in the end, and for all the reasons you mentioned. I mean, this was just such a knockout of a rum. Yep. And this isn't just a case where it's like, oh, rum nerds, oh, this is 70% ABV, oh my god, it's so strong, right. Oh, this is amazing. Agreed. Like the proof is not the reason why this is amazing. However, it is extremely well executed for a still strength 70.3% ABV, and especially when you tie it into kind of the backstory of the rum, which is this. It's called Cartier 30 because that was the strength that in the Crassel family's village that people liked to have the rum at. Right, they would mix it with cane juice, and so it was Cartier 30. Right, so. This one, it's such a great rum, and this is one that some of the Alambique Serrano blends are done this way. I think Cañada might also be distilled completely on the Crassel column still, which is like their family's custom still that their grandfather invented in the 30s. But this is 100% from that still, and if you like the aged blends, when you taste this, even though a lot of the aged blends have some of the pot still and not all the Crassel still in it. This rum is just like the essence of what they do, and you can take it. It's like it almost makes some of the aged releases make more sense for me when I taste this somehow. Not that I didn't like the aged ones, but it was just like I see the connection through everything. Yeah. Which is really beautiful, and it's the funny thing about this rum. The first time I tried it, it was the first pour from the bottle, and I was disappointed and underwhelmed because for whatever reason, I just didn't get much character from it at all. And I don't know if it was because of the high strength or because it was the first pour from the bottle and it just needed some time to breathe, or maybe it was something I ate that day. Maybe it was the mood I was in, whatever. But I'm so glad that I didn't let that experience sour me on it, because when I came back to it, like every time I've come back to it, it's just gotten better and better. It's really a standout and just a really great rum. I will say the one I was splitting hairs over was actually another guest we had on the podcast this year, which was Mater rum from Sicily. Yep. And you and I talked about, we tried all 3 of their unaged cane juice rums they released. They did a yellow cane, single cane varietal, a purple cane, single cane varietal, and then a blend of the 2. And when I did my initial tasting, the blend, it was down to the blend and the yellow in terms of which ones I preferred the most. Okay. And then I went back again about a week ago, and I felt like I must have been crazy, because this time around I was like, the yellow is just far and away the clear winner to me here. And it's such like an elegant rum. And one of the interesting things to me, because I know, and maybe this didn't express itself to you in that rum's profile, but it was a very floral pour for me. And I know that you've not been the biggest fan of floral rum, so
Right.
maybe that just didn't. Maybe it didn't express itself that way to you, but it was really hitting me that way, and in a way that I really enjoyed. But that's a really cool rum, and it does not taste like any other cane juice rums that I've had, which I think is something that it has in common with this Cartier 30, in that they are both just so distinct and so clearly stood out to me as something different. And maybe that's partially because, one comes from Sicily, one comes from Mexico. I know Mexico rums, is particularly the cane juice stuff, is becoming more prominent in recent years among rum enthusiasts. But
Yeah.
those are two locations that are very distinct from the places we're more used to getting cane juice rums from. So they were both great. At the end of the day, I have to give it up to the Cartier 30, though, for all the reasons you said. And I hate that we've started with two of the same picks. I know we're going to start diverging at some point, so just stick around, folks.
We're going to have to stop spending so much time with each other. That's
I think that's it. Yeah, we're becoming an old married couple now.
Right. I would have said my runner-up also was the Mater. Not only that, but the Mater
yellow.
Yeah. Unlike you, though, you said it took you time to warm up to both of those. And from the get-go, I was like, oh, these are excellent. And yeah, like you said, I didn't find as much of the floral with the yellow single varietal. I feel like it's much more straightforward. And again, a super amazing daiquiri with it also.
Yeah.
So this is a bottle that the Mater Yellow that I actually, right before we went to record this, Will, I bought another one. Because
Ooh.
I just want to make sure that this is still going to be available, and I don't know how limited that release is, and I like it that much. But again, just like you, and I kind of almost wish I could have willed myself into just picking the Mater just to be different from you. But the Cartier is just so good. It's like it's 1A and 1B here for me. So I don't know if you feel the same.
The problem, it's kind of like in the NBA a few years ago when the Warriors added Kevin Durant to their historically great team that won a record 73 regular season games.
Yeah.
It was like the LeBron teams that played them in the finals were really good, and LeBron was absolutely incredible, but it was just like you could not do anything against that stupid team. I don't feel the stupid feeling towards Alambique Serrano about Cartier 30. Complicated feelings with basketball, but anyway, yeah, the Cartier 30 was just inevitable for me this year. So
you know how sometimes I go down a geeky kind of route. You don't have that. You have your basketball route that you go down sometimes, which is great.
We love our digressions and our comparisons, but I think
Yes.
we've got another category coming up here, which is the aged rum 5 years or less, which was the other category that was an absolute bear for me to figure out what I was going to pick in this category, because there were so many younger aged rums in this category. And for a little bit, I was kind of surprised with what I ended up with. But the more I went back to it, the more I was like, this is it. And I have to say, it's kind of like about time that this rum got this, because it's an annual release.
Oh, okay.
And this is the Hampden Estate Great House 2024
Really?
rum. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
wow.
to
Okay,
quickly,
talk about
I'm
this,
assuming
yeah.
we don't have the same one finally. So
We
that's
don't.
good.
We don't.
So to give everyone the specs, obviously this is Hampton's annual Great House release. They do this every year. They change up the blend. This year, the blend is 50% 3-year LFCH. So LFCH is Hampton's second lowest ester mark. It's 20% 4-year LFCH. So that's a combined 70% LFCH. Most of it is 3-year. Some of that is 4-year. And then the final 30% is 15% 5-year HGML, which is one of their higher ester marks. And then it's 15% 2-year DOK, which is the granddaddy of them all, the highest of high ester Hampden rums. So it's an average age of 3.35 years, fitting right square, almost in a little over the middle, but right there in the center of the 5 years or less qualification. The average ester level in it is 463.5, which I was kind of doing some comparisons, just how did this compare? Because I was trying to figure out what I like so much about this rum, John. So this is actually the second highest average ester count that Hampden has done. It's slightly up from last year's Great House, which was 420, but significantly down from the top spot, which was 2022's, which came in at 855, and that was a blend of 74% HGML and 26% LROC. So this one for me, what I think I like so much about it, and I threw out those ester numbers just kind of for reference. I'll a disclaimer here. To me, like, you can have a rum with 463 ester count and one with 300, and the 300 one can end up tasting funkier than the 460. Like, it's not like this linear thing that always progresses exactly how you're going to expect it to. But this one, for me, it was like the platonic ideal of mixing lower ester Hampton marks with the higher ester ones. And to me, the DOK and the HGML in this blend, rather than just tasting like marks that have been layered on top of the lower ester one, it's almost like they're altering the LFCH and like pulling things out of it and enhancing it, sort of. I honestly think it's one of the most well-blended Hampton rums I've had, particularly at that young of an age, an average age of less than 3.5 years. It's just so juicy, and so much of the classic like grilled pineapple Hampton, like lime zest, funk kind of stuff that I love so much. I really am digging this rum. So I haven't bought all the Great House bottles every year.
I was just about to ask you that. Yeah.
I've tried all of them throughout the years, and they're always good. But this was the first one, I think, in a couple of years that to me really made me want to go out and grab a bottle immediately. So, and I know people's takes vary on this, perhaps more so than any other series of rums. Like, some people love the 2021, some people love the 2022, some people love the 2020, some think other ones are like way worse than others. It's really interesting how opinions go all over the place with this. But for me, I just I love this one. I think they knocked it out of the park.
I feel like, taking off of what you just said, volatile is the wrong word because that gives a negative connotation.
Yeah.
But I feel like some of the great houses have more volatility in terms of the experiences you get with them from one tasting session to another, which can be the mark of a really great rum to have, you know, because you get to go back in and experience different things with it. I will say this, although I did not pick it, it was one of my shortlist runner-ups.
So you're
not crazy.
You're at least not in the camp of like, oh, this is a down year for the Great House, that kind of thing. Which I'm not saying I've heard that. I haven't paid super close attention to all the reviews and stuff, but okay, so we're kind of still in lockstep a little bit.
Yeah, it's the best Great House since the initial release year for me.
I never had the 2019 actually. One of my rum regrets was I never got to try that one.
Rum regrets. That's a whole episode there.
Rum regrets. Maybe that should be the name of our cast project. Rum regrets.
Rum regrets. I like it.
Bad idea.
All right. Yeah, exactly. that's the tagline.
I almost think you were talking about volatility. I kind of think this is sort of the antithesis is too strong a word, but this is the other side of the coin of the Foursquare ECS releases, where those are like the complaint with those is they're too similar,
samey.
Right? Yeah, they're samey, which I get where that argument's coming from. I still really enjoy those. I always look forward to trying those. I don't always buy every bottle, but I enjoy them. I love comparing them and that sort of thing. Hampton is a lot more like big swings between releases, not in terms of quality, but just in terms of like, if you just compare the blend components, it's like, wow, these are wildly different. They you can find the breakdowns of everything out there. So anyway, I've said enough about this rum. I'm interested to see what you chose over it since it was on your short list.
All right. I think you could probably guess this one. If I had to guess any of my categories, that you might be able to guess this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I know what it is. I don't want to say it. I want you to announce it.
I've been unabashed about it ever since I tried it, which was very early in the year. This is the Down Island Ghana release, the 2020. And this is what I would call love at first sip. I recall trying this at the Miami Rum Congress last year in, I think it was late January, and it immediately stuck out then as a must-buy for me.
Your eyes connected across the room.
Exactly.
You and Mike Streeter.
As he was holding the bottle, and, kind of right next to his face.
There's a twinkle in his eye.
And there was I don't know, Prince or something playing. Could you be the most beautiful rum? All right.
I would die for you.
something like that.
Yeah.
So this is a cane juice pot still rum, and it hails from the Mim Distillery, which sits in the Ahafo region of the western Ghana. And it was 3+ years in ex-bourbon barrels, and then released at cask strength, 62% ABV. I don't have a whole lot of notes on this one other than it's one of the most memorable and spectacular drinking experiences that I've had this year, which I think I rarely say that about a rum that's aged 5 years or less. I think it feels to me like it's aged longer than it is when I drink it, which, again, we talk about how problematic that is in and of itself in terms of aging, but it is a stellar sipper. I would not use this in a mixed drink, although I'm sure people have and maybe have great recipes for it. This is one for me that I'm going to sip and enjoy until it's gone. I think listener and Patreon member Ben Pugh kind of nailed this in his review, saying you get a lot of candied and confectionery fruit notes on both the nose and the palate. It follows really well, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly. It's a hallmark rum. It's a hallmark triumph for Down Island. I'm really, really glad to have this bottle in my collection and hope it lasts for a while.
Wow. If that's how you feel about this rum, I can't wait to see what your overall favorite rum of the year was, because that sounded like favorite rum of the year material right there. That was a glowing review.
It's in contention. It's absolutely in contention for it when I was considering it, and it is a glowing review, and it deserves it. I'm probably being a little effusive because I'm really excited about this year's releases. As you said, it was an agonizing pick to make all of these, but what I think we ended up with were all really great rums. Like some years you're like, yeah, this is my pick, and it is a good rum. You know, it's really good.
Yeah.
These are great rums, including this one. Some runners up for me. So, interestingly, Pele's Fury 2 was an interesting one for me, and I really am enjoying that. But it's not really fair because I only just got it, a small sample. I need more time with it.
Right.
You mentioned the Hampton Great House, your pick, which I had also. And Lamason and Vellier's High Seas blend also deserves at least a small mention here.
It does.
A different, perhaps, way to think about this category, but really just a really good release, solid all the way around.
Yeah. High Seas is one that I think can deserve some comments in multiple categories, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. And interesting that you mentioned Pele's Fury 2, because I've just been digging into a sample of that. I think that's going to release like any day now, so I think it technically will be a 2024 release, but I think it's the same rum as Pele's Fury, but it's aged for a short amount of time in an ex-Mount Gay rum cask. And I'm glad to hear that you had a positive experience with it, because I did too. And it was like, it's a fascinating rum. I don't mean to take the spotlight away from your Ghana pick, but the finish takes like a hard turn for me in like a way that a lot of other rums don't do, and it was really interesting. So yeah, it's one I need to spend more time with. But yeah, Ghana 2020. I remember we started the year with our 100th episode, and one of the big themes on that episode with a lot of the luminaries of the rum world that we talked to was people were fascinated by Africa and Ghana as emerging rum regions. And I think this release is a really good example of why people are fascinated in that. I just tried a rum for the first time, and this isn't one that came out this year, but I believe it's sourced from the same distillery. And I think it's an external brand. It's kind of hard to figure out information associated with that distillery, but the brand name is called Reign Rum, like REIGN. And so I believe it's rum. It's cane juice rum, I believe, from that distillery, and it's aged in cashew apple brandy barrels. Which, are you familiar with the cashew apple?
Only that Mim's Distillery also does that, right?
So I knew they had something to do. I knew they had something to do with cashews. I honestly, I kind of forgot that cashews grow out of like a little fruit apple like thing. If you haven't seen this, like Google it. It's really strange looking. And you can eat the cashew apple fruit. And apparently making brandy from the cashew apple is something that is popular, I guess, not only in Ghana, but in India as well. And I wasn't familiar with this at all. So I guess they're making cashew apple brandy and then aging it there. And they had some cashew apple brandy casks. But you could definitely feel the influence from those cashew apple brandy casks on the rum. It was very interesting.
That is super cool.
And it was just a little sample I had of it. And it's it's a lower proof rum. I think it's like 4 to 5 years or something like that. But it was an intriguing experience.
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest with you. I've never seen a cashew apple, and I just Googled it, and they look like they grow on trees like upside down bell peppers is what they look like.
And then a cashew comes out of it.
And then the cashew's like on, yeah, like it's not even like the nut on the inside or anything,
I know.
right? It's like that's so weird.
Yeah.
But cool. Huh.
It's pretty interesting. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry for the digression. We have many other categories to get to. Great picks all around for the 5 years and under category. All right. Aged rum over 5 years now. I think
This is me, right?
Yes, you were going to lead this one, sir.
Okay. So this one is, I think, following along in the suit. Of course, we're not going to pick bad rums, right, ever. But this is also another one I think made waves when it was released, and for good reason. And that is the Velier Cambodia 2016 Flag Series.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Just getting over the 5 year limit, right? What was the age on that one?
No,
Is it 6?
I think it's I think it's 6 years. No, 8 years, right? Yeah, I think it's 8 years. I'm pretty sure it's 5 years in Cambodia, and then it's like another 3 in Europe, all ex-bourbon, if I remember right.
It is 8 year. You're right. Yeah. For some reason, I had 6 in my brain. But I mean, either way, it qualifies for the category. Yeah. But
it's not long aged. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And although the category is just over 5 years, it could be 20, and it's not here. It's an 8-year-old rum. But in much the same way as I was just talking about the Down Island Ghana, I found this to be super memorable, different than other rums that I've had prior, and a high quality, enjoyable experience with that. Those are rare, right? I mean, we're pretty, overall experienced rum drinkers. Will we know a lot of what's out there? We've had a lot of what's out there, and I don't want to overstate that in any way, but you don't find things like this origin or Ghana origin rums that you get to experience and have such a great, high quality release from. Almost seemingly out of nowhere for us, right? Mind you, Cambodia and that side of the world's been making rum for a long time, and it's just the access of it here in the United States that we don't get as much, especially in this format where it is cask strength, even at a low cask strength, but also no additives, right? Coming from the Velier company, that's going to be the case. Yeah, so this is from the Samai Distillery in Cambodia, which we should mention, by the way. I've had 1 or 2 of their rums before. They felt like they might have been sweetened, or they're very sweet. What we know from here with the Velier Flag Series is that they're reputable, additive free. So, a molasses pot still rum, as we mentioned, aged for 8 years in ex-bourbon. It's 48.7% ABV, so it's on the lower side of what we would call cask strength there, right? And it may not pack a raw punch in the same way that some of the other rums that we've had listed here do. But instead, what I think you get here is a lot more of the delicate, soft, but impressively flavorful journey that is an absolutely what I would call a sessionable rum, right? This bottle disappears way too fast. So I already need another. And if anybody knows a source, hit me up, please, because I know these go fast. But to me, this is a very worthy entry into the Flag Series that will be looked back fondly. Probably not easy to get very soon, is my guess. And it shows how a sub 50% rum can be just as dynamic and pleasing as an experience for rum lovers like us.
Yeah, this one, I think 205 bottles is all there was. They're actually, I know I've seen a couple in Nashville, John, so I don't know if they're still on shelves, but I can run out and grab one for you if you need a backup bottle.
Hell yeah. I need it. Real quick before you take off with yours, some runners up in this category. The Raisin Glasses Mookie Ecuador for me.
That's a 6-year rum. That's a 6-year rum. That's one of the 6 years I was thinking of. Yeah.
If it had been a 5-year rum, it would have really been a hard choice, and because I like that rum so much. Here, it was definitely a runner-up, but I feel like the Cambodia took it. The Roaming Road Aussie, really nice release that I raved about when we did a tasting. That's a Bin Lee product that is really good, and they had quite a few releases that I could have stuck in here, and So those are some of the runner-up for me, but I'm interested to see now. We started in the same place for a couple of our picks, but I think we're going to diverge here, is what I'm feeling.
Yeah, well,
so hit me with it.
We're diverging, but we're interestingly staying within the same series of releases.
I know what
but
this is.
I have gone with the Flag Series Fiji
Yes.
2012 from South Pacific Distilleries. This is a pot still molasses rum, aged 12 years in ex-bourbon, 2 years at origin, and 10 years in Europe. 64.5% ABV, cask strength, 238 bottles, and just like, I'm sitting here drinking some right now, and this is one, you know, we did our bonus episode where we tasted through the 3 new Flag Series releases, and this is the one out of the 3 where this, like, the second I took the first sip, it was kind of like your Ghana 2020 experience, where I was just like, that's it. Like, let's just exactly.
Yeah.
it's the Wayne's World scene. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was just like, let's wrap it up. Let's go home. This rum is awesome. It's just like there's a fruity creaminess to this where it's like strawberry, kiwi, and cream, and you ran it through a garden hose that went into a tank that used to hold some kind of like industrial motor oil or something, but you cleaned it out. So it's food safe, but there's just a little remnant of that. So it's all of that like industrial, fruity Fiji funk, but in a very refined package that just evolves as you drink it and is really impressive for a 12-year rum. The finish goes on. This to me was the standout of the Flag Series, and this isn't to denigrate your selection, but just because we were so in lockstep earlier, to give people an idea of where our tastes do differ. I liked the Cambodia and I thought it was cool, and it was like a great opportunity to get to taste a rum, you know, from an origin we don't get access to, as you said, with no additives. I do think Samai has some rums where they add like a little bit of local honey to, which is you know, totally fine. That's their prerogative, and they're transparent about it. But anyway, so I enjoyed the experience, but it didn't take me places really. It was like a solid rum to me, but not one that I considered for this category. But this one to me was just a knockout. And a few others I considered that I did consider for this: Raising Glass's Jobless release, which is their 21-year Trinidad, which I bought a bottle of that. It just arrived a couple of weeks ago, and I've really been enjoying that. Last year, I actually, as my overall rum of the year, also picked another rum from the Flag Series, which was their, I think it was 21 or 20 year. I can't remember the first Trinidad that came out. Those Trinidads from that era from TDL are just absolute stunners to me. I love those. And I even did a side by side with the Raising Glasses one and the Company de Indies one that we did a blind, a semi-blind review of, supplied by Rumcast listener Ben, and that one came out this year as well. I believe it may have been last year, but it was sometime recently. And to me, the Raising Glasses one was just head and shoulders above that one. But anyway, there's some other ones I considered that I'll save for the end because I might be bringing some of them up for other categories. But this Fiji one, if you're this is the rare. I don't know how rare it is, but this is the type of aged Fiji release that if you're a super fan of Fiji rums, you're going to really like it. And if you're new to Fiji rums, I also think it works really well as an introduction because it has some of the comforting elements, but it also has some of like the wild side to it as well. It's just, it's great.
A couple of comments before we move on. I can't disagree with you on the Fiji. I do think it's a standout. I will say that if you're tasting through the Flag Series like we did together, then the Fiji is going to dominate a little bit over the Cambodia's profile, right? It's just very different of a rum. But when you're sitting with the Cambodia on its own for a night, I think it really does blossom a lot more, not trying to, do it like in proximity to the Fiji or the Jamaica from that same line. Yeah,
that's totally fair. And I'll also say, we got samples of all 3 of these releases, and I went out and was just crossed my fingers hoping that these would arrive in Nashville. And my store Elixir, my guy out there, Tarak, he came through for me and had all of them. And the Fiji was the only one I bought. So I haven't had like the subsequent tastings of the Cambodia, and maybe it's the kind, it's more of like a, it grows on you, that kind of thing. Maybe it rewards repeated tasting sessions, and maybe I'd warm up to it more. But yeah, I will say that when we did our episode, it was my second favorite of the three. The Worthy Park was the only one that I felt, it was good Worthy Park, but it was just kind of like didn't really stand out in any way from many other Worthy Parks that I've had.
I guess I'm just saying to back that up is, some rums immediately from the start, as you mentioned, and we've talked about, but other rums, they do take time to reveal themselves a little bit. And so that's a different experience you can have with a bottle. I really have to say, I thought my hands down favorite for you for the overall rum of the year was this one. So now I'm left wondering, what is going to be your overall rum of the year?
Oh, you thought this would be my overall rum?
I did. Oh, okay. I did. I thought your praise of that, and you mentioned the Raising Glasses Jobless. I thought it was one of those two, man. I would have put money on it. So now I'm like, ooh, I don't know what you're picking for overall rum.
Intrigue. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, for now, we have the new to me rum category, which I believe I will be leading off here.
Yep.
So there were a couple of rums that really stuck with me after we did our Guide to Madeira Rum episode. But the one that did the most was the O Resinho limited edition white rum, which is an unaged cane juice rum bottled at 45% ABV, which did not come out this year. I think this has been around. I think this may have come out last year or the year before, actually. But that whole episode was really an opportunity for me to get more familiar with a lot of rums that were new to me, some of which came out this year, some of which were older. But this was the one, when I poured this rum at 45% ABV, it was not one of the highest proof rums, but it had to have had the biggest nose out of all of them. And I mean, it was going up against like 60% plus rums. You and I both commented when we got to this rum how much it jumped out of the glass. And it just, it's distilled on a little pot still. We talked about O Resinho in our episode there. Distillery in a garage, basically. But the amount of flavor packed into this 45% ABV unaged cane juice rum was ridiculous. It's briny, it's sweet, it's savory. You get the olives, you get the salinity, you get this kind of like mulled apple cider note with sweet fruit and spices. And it really, like I said, we tried a bunch of rums for that episode, and that was the one that stuck to me. And when I was just reflecting on stuff that, what's something that didn't come out this year, but that was new to me in some way. And in some years, I think we've gone through like classics that we just hadn't gotten to before. And it's funny because a rum that I had actually, it's probably a key rum of the world. I don't know if it's in Lance's actual series or not, but it probably should be, that I tried for the first time this year was actually Havana Club Selección de Maestros. Okay. I tried that for the first time this year. Interestingly enough, another 45% ABV rum, completely different. And again, that's one that's like a classic, right? And I just hadn't gotten to it until this year. And I was kind of thinking about that, but as much like I enjoy that rum, it's a solid rum. But I don't love it. Like I really loved this rum, and this one kind of like really not only sold me on Madeira rum as a whole, but also O Resinho as a distillery got me really excited about them.
Yeah, this made my short list as well. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean Madeira rum as a whole, but also O Resinho in particular was a standout. Okay. So I can't fault you at all for that. I agree with everything you said with it. I wish I could disagree, but there's less disagreement on this episode, more because we know these are stellar rums, and it's going to be rare when we.
This is a time for peace and harmony.
Yeah, exactly. And so I get it with you. So I'll jump into my new to me rum, and I will tell you it's a little bit of a cop out. I'll just start there. Do you know, Will, I don't know if you do, there's a meme online that comes from video gaming. A new challenger approaches, and it's usually like a silhouette of something.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that meme. Yeah.
All right, so this is like a new challenger approaches for me this year, and it's very much a landmass shape or an island shape, and it's coming into view, and it looks a lot like
Are there sirens singing you towards this landmass?
No, I don't think so. I think it's too north for that. Okay. This is a UK rum as a whole here, and that's what I mean by a cop-out. And I'm going to mention some things. But the landmass or island, I don't know if you can properly call that an island because it's so big. The United Kingdom is making some really great rums right now. We did do early in the year a review of a lot of these, including Dropworks, Ninefold, Isla Rum Company, and a few others. And I gotta say, I walked away from that experience saying, more UK rums, please. Impressively good stuff with, I think, what might be somewhat of a style coalescing right before our eyes or mouths. And I want more of that. So I struggled to pick any one rum that I would say is like the dominant, like, new to me rum that I would say. And I did that on purpose because I feel like I just want people to explore the UK rum category more. So, yeah, you're going to probably tag me for being a cop-out on this, but...
Fair enough. But if you had to pick one, which would it be? Think about it this way. Because I imagine we have many listeners right now who are thinking, yeah, I'd like to try some UK rum. I haven't had any or much at all. Where do you suggest they start? Like, if they can only get one bottle or two bottles, what are you saying?
Well, so I'm going to go against what I was just saying a minute ago, that there is like one style, right? Because those distilleries are different enough that if you try one from one, it's not like trying one from another for sure. So that's a hard thing to do. I would probably say what I would gravitate towards for me, and this is where you and I sometimes do differ in our tastes. I tend to be a little bit more down the middle of the plate with some of the rums that I really, really gravitate towards and enjoy, where not to say that you don't enjoy those also, but sometimes you like the edge cases a little bit also. And so
okay, sure. That's fair.
I'm gonna go with Ninefold. I'm going
All
to
right.
say that Ninefold and what they're doing is probably where I would lead people towards, but it is no discredit to Isla Rum, Dropworks, and some of the other ones, that they are doing really great things, that if you're going to gravitate more towards something that you want a little bit more funk in or a little bit more industrial, that type of notes with, then you go with those. Whereas Ninefold, I think, is a little bit more of the classic experience for rum, although it brings its own thing. And it is unique in and of itself. So, and the bottle is just beautiful. Ninefold's bottles are amazing.
It's a nice bottle.
So,
We agree there.
Yeah.
I think my picks, there's kind of three distilleries that come to mind for me, one of which is Ninefold. And I do agree with you. I think if you want to go for like the kind of classic age profile, that's where I would go. If you want to go adventurous white rum, I would say Isla. I thought about their Unya More release for this, which is their long, funky fermentation release. It actually came out it would have been fine for this category, but it came out in 2023, technically. And then also Hooley from Outlier Distillery on the Isle of Man. Their Manx rum, which we tried, was really interesting. And I've heard great things about the Overproof. We still haven't gotten our hands on the Overproof. We really need to try that, but... Yeah. That's kind of where I would go. And, like you said, there's other producers out there as well that are worth trying, from Dropworks to Matuga to, there's ones I'm forgetting now and I feel like a jerk. Yeah. But anyway, we explored that thoroughly in our episode, and there's still more to explore. So maybe, John, while we're over in London and Liverpool in a few weeks here, maybe we can do a little more exploring of these UK rums.
That is absolutely on my itinerary, and it should be on yours as well.
I'd like to think we're having, somewhat of a shared itinerary. We're not just getting there and going our separate ways.
Oh, I thought I was just making it, and you were just going to follow along with whatever I was going to do.
I'm actually good with that, yeah.
All right. In that case, yes, plenty of UK rum to be had when we are there. All right, so moving on to the next category here, I'm leading off for this one, is going to be our best value rum pick. Will, I feel like there's a decent chance that we might match up here. This was the one that I picked in my head that we might match up for before we started this. Okay. So I won't be terribly surprised. And I feel that way because I feel supremely confident in the value of this rum, and that it is... It's hard to pick anything else. I really felt like this was the one where I was like, there's nothing else that approaches the quality of what this rum is bringing with the value and the price that it's bringing.
I'm dreading that we might be aligned yet again. So just please put me out of my misery.
All right. Well, let's do it. It's the Shikara.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Year. This is a Sang Som distillery product from Thailand, column distilled, 12 years, aged in ex-bourbon, and a 45.7% ABV. As I mentioned, it's a bit of a down the middle, like fastball pitch that is great at what it does. It doesn't do anything that's going to super stick out. I do remember, Will, when you and I tried Thailand, I think together for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was a Sang Som product, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And both of us said, wow, this is really great.
Yeah.
And that was probably, 2 years prior to this release? Maybe more?
Maybe more, because this was back when we ended up doing the Fiji rum that became the Homeski Fiji Single Origin.
Right.
And the runner that came close to being, I don't want to say close, but like if it had been something else, it would have been the Homeski Thailand Single Origin, because that was our consensus runner up, and we really liked it too.
So, it's no surprise to see that somebody picked up on this, in this case, La Maison Vellier, who are bottling this, and it's no surprise to me that they have a great product with 12 years of aging for less than $50.
Amazing.
I should have said no surprise. I meant a surprise.
That is a
in
surprise.
many ways. Yeah, that to get that price point on a 12-year-old product of this quality is
aged at origin, by the way.
Aged at origin. Yeah, it really, you can't go wrong there. Also, I want to say the label is awesome for this one. I really like the label. It's a stand-up release
package.
In every way, and I'm honestly stumped this hadn't had that wide release to this half of the world prior to this. So, yeah, it's really good. I will mention runner-up. I did have a runner-up that I would say is a long-distance runner-up. Like it's dragging, a bit behind the Shikara in terms of the where I saw it. But that is the JM Atelier series.
Oh, yeah.
Which we did some semi-blind reviews of. Probably the Fumé is my favorite of them, but any of them are really good, and the prices are really good on those. So, kudos to them for putting together a good product at a good price.
Yeah. John, earlier you mentioned that you were kind of flummoxed now as to what my overall favorite rum of the year was going to be.
Yeah.
And I came this close to making Shikara 12-year my overall rum of the year. Because, here's the thing. I know most of the time historically our overall rums of the year have been long-aged, high ABV rums, right? And I don't think that's been done intentionally, but it's rare to me to encounter a 45.7% ABV rum for, as you said, I think it's generally around $49.99, something like that, that is this good. And it was almost like when I tried it, it almost instantly became like a key classic rum to me. I would like the way I look at this is almost like, what if Appleton 12 came out for the first time this year?
Yeah.
That feels like a hot takey kind of bold statement, but I would put this rum on par with that rum in terms of what it's bringing to the table. It's a fabulous rum. It's great sipped on its own. If you want a relaxing, uncomplicated, but still quality and with some complexity to it drink that's just easy, sessionable, and tasty as hell, this rum is great for that. You can make amazing like spirit forward cocktails with this, like rum old fashions. It works great. It's great for introducing people to rum. It's great for introducing rum nerds to Thailand rum, because a lot of people still haven't had it. It's just so versatile. And like when I heard that they were bringing this product to market, I was like, 12-year, aged at origin. Even though I knew it was 45.7% ABV, I was still expecting the price tag to be around, over $75 or so. And when we actually did our first semi-blind review episode, and I submitted this rum to you on that show, which you acquitted yourself very well. You came very close on what this was. But when you were guessing price of what the rum would be just based on taste, not knowing any of the specs, you said around $75 to $80.
Yep.
And again, that's what makes this rum such a great value. And I know that their intent, I think, is to make this like a regular release that's always available. I hope that it becomes that, and it becomes a mainstay of the rum world, because it's a phenomenal rum. And I really feel like this was like, I feel like we could look back in 5 or 10 years and be like, wow, that was the year Shakara 12, and it's like still around and still great, right? It's just it's really good.
I gotta say that's a really great defense for why it would be a rum of the year. So although I would have been surprised, I would have slow clapped you there at the end for that explanation.
Well, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll slow boo me for what I end up picking instead. But know that I was close to picking something you would have liked. So, it's an amazing value rum. If you haven't tried this rum yet, just because you see the lower ABV and you're like, I don't know about this, just do yourself a favor and grab a bottle. At the very least, maybe this rum you might say is boring, although I think most people won't. I could see a certain type of rum drinker thinking it's boring, which that's not a judgment on you. I'm just saying. But at the very least, you're not going to think it's bad. It is tasty. So I'll put that out there.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I know our next one is not going to be the same.
I was going to say, I'm not going first for this one, but I already would have known that this isn't going to be the same. Yep.
So most surprising rum, I had to pour myself a little bit more of this year. And this is where I'm going to bend the rules a little bit because I don't actually know if this is a commercially available rum. So I feel like a little bit of an asshole for picking this. But when I thought about rums that genuinely surprised me, this is the one that surprised me beyond any other. So this is an unaged rum from Line 44 Distillery in Timaru, New Zealand. So I know I've been texting you about this rum because I've been hoping. We both got some samples of this from a friend of the podcast, and I know you were trying to locate yours. I'm not sure. Oh, there it is. Yes,
it is.
Okay. It looked like it was still sealed, so I won't get the John Gulla. I won't get the John Gulla reaction, the booze or the agreements. But anyway, I'm glad that you have it though. So this is. I need to give the backstory here. This is a distillery in New Zealand run by Callum and Luke Upfold, who have a connection to someone Rumcast listeners may remember, Steven Schellenberger, the man behind the Boston Apothecary blog, who it's so hard to try to sum up like what the Boston Apothecary blog is. But Steven has he has dug up and publicized tons and tons of rum research papers from the last century and a half or so, many of which were by a chemist and rum researcher named Rafael Arroyo, who did a lot of rum research and experimentation in Puerto Rico in the first half of the 20th century. And Line 44 Distillery, they kind of refer to Rafael Arroyo as sort of their patron saint of the distillery. And they have really poured through the work that Steven has brought to light. And Steven's done some of his own work as well, some of his own experimentation with different yeasts and biorectifier analyses and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, it's deep. It's a rabbit hole. But so in early 2020, they kind of started experimenting and were really inspired by these like quote unquote lost papers of Rafael Arroyo. They kind of developed a correspondence with not only Steven, but also his collaborator, Corey Widmeyer, who's a microbiologist and fermentation specialist. And they'd been working together trying to understand this work of Rafael Arroyo. And now they have this distillery in New Zealand that is, kind of bought in, like, we want to try some of this stuff and put it into action. So they've collaborated a lot on various research and stuff. And this rum is one of the things that they have put out there. And again, I think this is different from their commercially available white rum. It is a rum that is made with a fission yeast, so an Espombe yeast, and a mildew yeast. And I went into this with a degree of skepticism because there have been a lot of new quote-unquote craft distilleries that have tried their hand at these, unconventional, weird fermentation experiments and stuff. Yeah. And I've tried a lot of them that, frankly, were not good. And I've tried from multiple distilleries that have been familiar with some of the work I just described from Steven's blog, and still didn't really see something where I was like, okay, I'm really starting to see the brilliance of this Rafael Arroyo, these methods that never caught on in commercial distilleries, but that, that he thought and that Stephen has preached that these are amazing methods that could create like the best rum in the world. This is the first time I've encountered one where I was like, I'm not ready to say this is the best rum in the world. And in actuality, there are some things that I think need ironing out with it, but there is a bright, fruity funkiness in this rum that I have rarely encountered to this level outside of the heavy hitter high ester rum producers, which I don't even know if they would describe this as a high ester rum, but there are flashes of things that remind me of Hampden a little bit. There are flashes of things that remind me of Savannah Her, which I know is a divisive rum.
Yeah.
And it's not to the intensity level of like the of either of those distilleries, that what they can do at the high end. But there is this concentrated, funky fruitiness, and it almost expresses itself as kind of like I wrote down like funky lemon lime soda kind of. It's really interesting. And like I said, I think there's some things that might need to be ironed out. I get this kind of like bready quality on the finish, and I almost feel bad because, like, again, I don't think this is commercially available. I don't even know if they would prefer I talk about this on a podcast. We are hoping to have Line 44 on, I think, in the new year, along with Steven, to come back on the show to talk about this rum. But I was just so surprised and so like, I have to know more about what this distillery is doing. And I have to follow this distillery closely because, again, this, like, it's a double take rum is how I would describe it.
And that's certainly qualifies as most surprising given the lengths that you're wanting to go to. And I'm excited to try it. I had it here because I was going to consider breaking that open and trying it. I know you had texted me about it, but yeah, I have yet to do so. So now I'm even more interested to see what this is going to bring.
Some of that bubble gum in there as well. It's just
really,
yeah.
That's a rare thing.
Again, when I said Savannah Her, you're not going to taste this and be like, this tastes like that. It's not the same intensity level, but they're
But to your point, you don't know the mark here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So this could be a middle of the road, ester rum for them, and they could get higher.
And again, there's some things that I think can continue to improve. But this is a very new distillery, and there's just enough here to where I'm like, I gotta watch this.
Okay. Cool.
So we differ then.
We do, very much so. I was sure, based on this pick that I have coming now, that you also. I'm gonna guess you may not have even experienced this rum this year, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
And it's because it might be one that you might pass over very easily.
Oh,
and hence being in the most surprising rum category.
That makes me feel like you think I might be a little judgmental about whatever this is going to be.
I don't know that to be the case, but let me explain myself. I'll go ahead and reveal it and then tell you why I think that. My most surprising rum this year is 10-1 5 Origin Select.
Oh, okay. I have not had the chance to try this rum, but I'm interested to hear your take on it.
Well, people listening to this will be familiar with the 10-1 brand, of course. In their previous two releases, there was the aged dark rum Caribbean blend and their white rum blend. Both were good. I don't know that they really hit super home with rum aficionados beyond saying it's a good product and you could do a lot worse. But they've been around for a few years now and have kind of been trying to get some market presence. So this one came about when I recently went to the Rum Renaissance Festival here in Miami, and 10-1 had a table. And, I kind of went past it because I've experienced their rums, and so I was looking at other things I was a little bit more interested in. And then as I glanced at the table as I was kind of walking by, I saw there was what they have is like a Founder's Reserve limited edition, something like that. I'm probably not nailing that exactly, but that drew me in because I was like, oh, well, I haven't tried that. And so that was why I went over to the table and I said, you know what, let me try it. And that one was fine. Not bad in any way, but especially for the price point, wasn't something I was going to be interested in. But while I was there, I saw that they had the nice green label that really stands out
it's
for
vibrant.
this 5 Origin Select. And so I said, you know what? I'll go ahead and try that one. I haven't had that one yet. And I'm very glad I did.
Yeah.
This is a blend of 5 rums, hence the name, aged up to 15 years. It's got an 11 to 15-year-old Port Morant double pot still part of the blend. It's also got rum from Trinidad, Barbados, Dominican Republic, and Jamaica as the sources. It's bottled at 46%. It's not going to blow you away, but again, a really high-quality blend that I think brings out the right pieces of those Caribbean distillers and comes together in the right way. So I just have to say that it was surprising to me as an experience that was the rum that I found was the better one of the 2 that I tried then. And having since tried it again, I was like, confirmed. This is a really solid rum. It's $65 on the price point. I don't love that as much as we were just talking about a value rum. It's not going to be the most value rum on the list here, but I still think it's one that is easily missed because it kind of sits in this weird category of multi-country blend, and you're just not really sure with those sometimes. So yeah, I think it's one that I'm hoping people will try and see if they enjoy it as well. So a couple runner-ups, by the way, and this is where I think you'll have fun with me on this one. Again, most surprising, I was at an event this year with Brugal's new Visionaria Edition 2.
Right.
I don't know what to make of it still, but I will say it wasn't a bad rum. I enjoyed it. I was 2 or 3 cocktails in at that point, so I can't really judge well a tasting after I've done that in my mind. Yeah. But I will say that the rum held its own. It was a higher ABV than they normally do, and it had a good flavor profile that didn't seem like it was sweetened to me, so which is a nice step up from some of those products in Dominican Republic that often are. Another runner-up is I did try a 9-year Rolling Fork Barbados rum this year that was aged in Weller casks, and it made me a believer in their ability to match casks with rums sourced because it's really good.
I became a Rolling Fork believer this year as well. Yeah, in just kind of their cask selection and using all these different ex-bourbon casks. I'm sold on it, actually. I think it does have a tangible impact on the rum, and I think they're good at what they do. I will say, on that note, I had a surprising rum that is surprising to me because surprise is usually not the word that comes to mind for one of the runners-up in this category. Foursquare.
Okay.
Foursquare Absolutio. So this is one of the Velier.
Absolutio. It's a hard
Absolutio.
T, Will.
It's a hard
yes.
T. Okay,
yes.
Forgive me. Absolutio. It is one of the Velier Foursquares. I don't have the specs in front of me, but it has some export aging involved. And what was surprising to me is I think it's the most heavy-handed I don't even know if it's to call it a secondary because I don't remember like the order of operations and how they aged it. But when you see export, a lot of times I expect heavy-handed, but with Foursquare I don't expect heavy-handed because their releases tend to be very balanced in that influence from fortified wine casks. This one, heavy influence, but even more surprising to me because usually the heavy export influences I don't like. I loved it. I thought it was so good and so delicious. So anyway, that was one that I thought about as well, but ultimately not as surprising as this Line 44 rum I just talked about. But John, this brings us to a unique category, our Am I the Asshole category. And for this one, I want to be... Oh, wait. You go first this time.
I'm going first for this one.
Okay, you go first. Go ahead.
I'll make it a quick one, though, because... I feel like I might actually be the asshole this year, Will. And so I wasn't really looking forward to this in a way that, like in other years past when we've done it, I feel like confident. But this one, I just sipped it again while we were talking. And because I'm a little bit more on the borderline than I expected, that's why I feel like I'm the asshole, because I don't feel as confident that I don't like it. Right?
Okay.
Or it's not, well, let me say it's not that I don't like it, right? And in the past we've talked about the asshole category here doesn't mean we don't like it. It's just not bringing what we expected or wanted from it, right? Yeah. And if that's where we're judging this category off of, then I do think that still fits. And funny enough, my distillery of the year last year was El Dorado, and this year's Am I the Asshole category, it's the El Dorado High Ester series release. And I picked it because for what I think they're marketing here, it doesn't bring that to me. This feels like a good El Dorado release. It's fine. It's drinkable. I'm drinking it now, and I was enjoying it. But when I go back to it, I feel like, well, how is this really separating itself from a lot of the other El Dorado releases out there? And I just don't feel like it does that. So I guess maybe I'm the asshole for saying that, but that's where I'm at.
Well, if you're the asshole, I am too, because this was also
Really?
my pick.
That is great. Wow.
Oh my God. I swear we don't plan this in advance. There's no other year that has been like this year. I think there's been 1 year where we had one pick in common, and literally in our 5 years of doing this now, the 4 previous years, there was one pick we had in common. This year we have 4. It's not surprising to me that this was yours, because I remember we did a bonus episode where we talked about this together and we were in agreement on it. But again, I'm not saying this is a bad rum, and I know you're not either.
Right.
It's a tasty El Dorado rum, but I've seen reactions to this rum from some people who like think it's one of the best El Dorados they've ever had.
Right.
And it's people like it. I respect that opinion. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything. I just feel like I'm so far from that type of reaction on this, where when I tasted this, I was just kind of like, this tastes like a higher strength El Dorado product, you know?
Yep.
Like it tastes like the El Dorado blends that El Dorado puts out. I'm separating that from the IBs and stuff, because their stuff can tend to be a little bit wilder sometimes than what El Dorado, the brand, puts out. And because of the high ester, the prominent high ester label, I wasn't going into this thinking this needs to taste like a Jamaican rum,
Of
or I'm
course,
going to be
of course.
disappointed.
Right.
I was thinking, I'm expecting this to be somewhat unique and distinctive from other El Dorado releases. Not like a complete left turn or anything, because I do think they have a carefully cultivated flavor profile. Like I know the blends are different, and you can taste the differences, and I think they're amazing at blending, but they stay within kind of a comfort zone, I think. And I was expecting this to go a little bit beyond it, just because of how prominent the high ester labeling, marketing of it was. And so when I tasted it, and I was like, well, not only do I not totally see where the high ester part of this is coming from, like I'm not tasting a whole lot of like super different stuff from other El Dorado blends. It's also, to me, not a significantly better El Dorado blend from the other high strength blends that they've put out. So it didn't really stand out in any way to me. And I'm just confused by this rum, because like you go to the El Dorado website, and this has a page where it lives on their website now, and it gives the specs. It says it offers a much higher level of esters than a traditional rum, which maybe it does. Again, like I said earlier when talking about Hampton stuff, you can't just go off of like ester count to know what the rum is going to ultimately taste like. But then it has this like paragraph explanation, and then it has a final line on the webpage: perfect for mixing cocktails.
Oh.
What?
Oh. Wow.
Like,
that is odd. Yeah.
I mean, this is a $120+
I think it's 130 plus in most places.
Bottle of rum. It's 11 years, I think, aged. Somewhere it's 10+ years aged for sure. And I mean, I'm sure you could make some good cocktails with it, but it certainly struck me as more of like this is supposed to
sipping rum,
like a sipping rum, which I'm not a snob, but like you can mix whatever you want. It's just odd to me that it would like. So I don't know what they were trying to do with this. I guess I'm just very confused. Maybe I'm the asshole.
I just pulled it up because I wanted to see, and I see where it says perfect for mixing cocktails. But then if you look in the italics below it, there's a sentence that says a rum to be sipped and savored for its delicateness. Right.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't notice that. So I don't know. I feel like it just feels like
AI write this?
It just feels like they had different things in mind for what this rum was going to be. So I don't know. Again, it's totally fine. If we talked about a lot of this in our bonus episode about this, which this was like in like March or April, I want to say. So it was a while ago. And we're neither one of us is trying to tell El Dorado like how they should describe their rum, or like who gets to use high ester and who doesn't. You know, those terms don't belong to us. We're not from the Caribbean. But this one, it just was very confusing. It was a very confusing experience to me. And even separating the high ester stuff, if I'm just judging this rum on the merits, it didn't stack up to me as a standout rum at all. So that's just the gap that I felt between myself and everyone else. And maybe that makes you and me the assholes. I'm open to that possibility. I've been an asshole before. I'll probably be an asshole again. So
we're just a pair of assholes over here.
Right.
Apparently.
Well, let's finish this strong. We've got overall rum, we've got distillery, and we've got bottler of the year. So overall rum.
You get to be first for
I
overall
get to be
rum,
first.
which I love because I have one guess left. But I'm not going to guess it. I'm going to keep it to myself.
Okay. I don't think you're going to get it.
Okay.
This is a rum for me that I could not stop thinking about this rum. I could not stop thinking about this producer throughout the year. And I felt it first because this is a very young rum. Like I had to qualify this in some way. But ultimately, it's just a great rum, and I think it stacks up to any amount of age on any other rum. And this is Alambique Serrano Mata Diablo, blend number 3. So, to give the specs quickly, this is a cane juice rum from Oaxaca, fermented in both stainless steel tanks and pine vats with wild ambient yeast, distilled with both pot and column stills. We have an appearance from the Crassel still again here, and aged in a variety of casks. So the blend is 32% pot still, aged 6 months in an ex-mezcal cask. Yes, my skepticism did go up when I saw that initially. 27% pot still, aged 19 months in first use French oak. 23% pot still, aged 17 months in first use French oak, then rested 3 months in open glass demijohns. And finally, 18% Crassel still, the column still, aged 21 months in an ex-bourbon cask, bottled at 63.4% ABV, 637 bottles. And this rum, to me, was just one. It's like every time I go back to it, I get something else from it. And today, I was tasting it. I've got a glass here, and I'm tasting it, and I'm just like, this is like minty, like malted chocolate milk chocolate balls with charred peppers and caramel. It does so many things. It drinks really well for the proof. The ex-mezcal cask factor, which when I saw that, I was just like, I've never had a rum in an ex-agave spirits cask of any type that I have ultimately enjoyed that much. And this one, to me, it works beautifully in there because it's not like you just get a bunch of smoke or anything. It's again, it adds up. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It's a great blend. And you said something when you were talking about Cartier 30 earlier, which is from the same producer. You used the word authenticity. Yep. And that's what I kept coming back to from the products I tasted from them throughout the year. We did an episode with both Jason Cox, who is kind of the founder behind the Alambique Serrano brand. He's sort of the blender and bottler. We talked to one of the members of the Crassel family, Isidoro Crassel, so a producer. And we also talked to the importer when we talked to PM Spirits. We had Nicholas Palazzi on the podcast. And in all of those interviews, there was just this commitment at all 3 of those levels to authenticity, even at the importer level, that I think is uncommon. And it comes together in the end product so well. And like, I think this rum wins on, it doesn't win anything. It's just my personal favorite, but it's my favorite on the merits of the liquid in the glass, but also when you add in all that other stuff behind it. And I think this rum, it feels like a moment in time for what's happening in Mexican cane spirits and Oaxacan rum. And I want to see where that story goes. Yeah. And like, these are products for enthusiasts. So if we want to see where this story goes, this is something to get behind and to support. And I love what they're doing. And this was the release to me that stood out the most of all the ones that I tried this year. So that's my overall rum of the year.
It's a great pick. It really is. And I enjoyed so many of the Alambiques this year that it would be hard for me to kind of pick one among them. And I think that could even change a little bit. Their blends are fantastic. Really just standout product. Like you said, I agree with everything with the authenticity angle and that same kind of like, we need to get behind this as a great product in our rum space because we want to see more of that from them and other producers as well. So totally agree with you. It's a very good pick for overall rum.
What did you think it was going to be?
Well, so I had some thoughts, and I'll tell you actually my runners-up, which I thought might have been yours, which is something we have yet to really name or talk about on a best of the year, which is probably a memorable release for a lot of people, and that is the Holmes Key Infinity Cask.
Okay, yeah.
And so that actually is going to be a runner-up for me, and I'll tell you why. It's because as good as it is, it's such a limited release and a difficult release for people that you know are unable to get it because of price point, that it's hard for me to pick it in this category outright. I will say it's worthy of being one of the best overall rums of the year and most memorable in many ways.
It's a great rum. Yeah,
what they did it well in the packaging of it. Obviously, you know, there was a lot of care that was put in for it, but ultimately it lost out to something that might have you might be surprised by for me. Before I get there, I will say two others that were runners up for me. One you mentioned, well, kind of mentioned, a Foursquare release.
Ah, which one?
Foursquare 2011 is a standout vintage year. It's really great. It's gotten better as I've gone through the bottle. And if you look at my Foursquare collection, it's telling to see which bottles have been there for a little bit longer and are a little bit higher in volume than others. And this Foursquare 2011 has kind of sat out on my bar all year, not only because it's a great looking bottle, but also because it is really freaking good. So that one was close for me. It really was. And then the Roaming Road Belize, which we talked about on a recent episode, was also a standout. Really good stuff. And all three of these came up against this other one rum for me. And ultimately, I picked this as my overall rum for the year, partly because, as you mentioned, it's emblematic of something bigger than just itself, but it's also a stellar rum. And it was your rum that you picked for the aged category. It's the La Maison et Belliere Flag Fiji, release 2012.
We found a way to come together yet again on this episode. Amazing.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I'm really glad it wasn't your pick for overall rum of the year because I didn't want to match up there. But I feel emboldened that you had it as another category because it is that good of a rum. So I won't expend a lot of time. You've already gone through the boilerplate for it, what it is. But what I will say is it would be very difficult to get a Fiji rum as good as this one, especially for the price point that they're doing it for. A 12-year release. It's not super long aged, but it's not young either. And it's bringing everything into its world in such a way that it feels well placed and crafted in such a way that it brings everything you want in the nose, in the palate, in the finish. It is not weak in any place whatsoever. And part of what I was saying earlier is just like the rum itself is really that good and worthy of being this pick, the Flag series in general has come onto the scene in the last couple of years and just, I think, planted its flag, no pun intended, I didn't even think of that before this, in this space to say like, hey, you want some of the best rum ever? You look no further than what this series is offering. I know that the Guyana release the first year was met with a little bit of trepidation from people in terms of whether it was worth it. And I know not every release is amazing, but this year's three releases I thought were all really great picks. And, you know, it's just, I love seeing more rums come to our area of this type of quality, not ridiculously expensive, and bringing something that just shows what a rum from that origin and space can do. It's amazing. It's worthwhile to get. If you don't already have a bottle and there's one by you in a nearby store, buy it now. Yeah. And you will thank yourself later for it. So, yeah, it was a tough one.
I have nothing to add. Yeah, I have nothing to add because I agree with you. It's one I considered for this as well. It's a great rum. I think it's your turn to go first, but I'm just... Distillery of the year is everything I just said. It's the Crassel family distillery. Like everything I just said about Mata Diablo. I feel like I said everything I need to say about this distillery and what's been so special. But even beyond the blend releases, there were so many single casks they did with stores and with clubs and all kinds of stuff. And I was even going back and tasting their their first single cask number 1, which is this like 70% behemoth, just like a powerhouse. And I actually, as a whole, favored the blends more than the single casks. That single cask was really good though. But the blends are just like one after the other of like different angles on this growing collection of casks they have there. And that was just the producer that throughout the year I kept being like, what's out from them now? What's out from them now? I've got to find a way to taste that, And they have blend number 6 out now, which I have not been able to taste yet, which is driving me crazy. I'm just waiting for that to hit the Nashville market. So that's one of my omissions. But anyway, I'll keep it short because I've already said a bunch of stuff about them. But yeah, that's mine.
And I'll keep it even shorter because somehow we matched up again.
God.
That is what I picked, Alambique Serrano. For all the reasons you said, they exploded onto the rum scene. They've been everywhere, and for good reason. I will say, though, I differ in one thing in terms of, like, I feel like this was the year of the IB for me. And I don't mean to lessen what you just said about Alambique Serrano. I'm just going a little bit quicker because I don't have anything to disagree with what you said. And the IB of the year for me is La Maison and Vellier. I mean, we talked about them multiple times throughout our picks here. They're just kicking ass. There's a ton of great offerings and lineups that are now from American-based IBs. So they're, to me, the top echelon, along with, Homesky, Raising Glasses. I mean, Raising Glasses, I think we mentioned them in most categories also in terms of bringing something out that was worthwhile. And so there's these Rolling Fork we mentioned. I mean, Roaming Road is new for us. Samaroli and Bristol is coming next year.
Colors of Rum is coming.
Colors of Rum. I mean, there really feels like we're on the edge of an explosion of independent bottlers bringing, there's always been independent bottlers, right? But they were bringing in rums that were probably not what we felt we wanted to expend our time and money on. Whereas now there is a lot of them that are in the space that are worthwhile. So I still think the crown jewel of them is La Maison and Vellier. I mean, they're just, look no further if you're looking for a pattern to follow than them for what you're doing with an IB.
Yeah, I mean, we picked multiple rums, both of us associated with them. So they're doing an amazing job. I love everything that they're particularly. I mean, we primarily cover the U.S. market. Obviously, we've tasted some stuff that were EU only releases throughout the year, but by and large, what we're tasting and discussing on the show is what is in the American market because that's what we have access to, and they're bringing some amazing stuff. And so for mine, I actually went with Raising Glasses for Bottler of the Year. And I do want to say, yes, they've sponsored the show before. Yes, they are being helpful to us behind the scenes as we work on the cask project. Yes, they are Rumcast Patreon members, and they come to our happy hours and are a great presence there. I just want that all out there in the open. People can take with that what they may. With all that said, there are so many reasons for them to be a standout bottler beyond, the fact that they are helpful to us in some way. I don't think it can be overstated how much of a game changer the 375 milliliter bottles are.
Yeah.
This is an expensive hobby if you want to taste as much stuff as we try to taste. And that really goes a long way in defraying some of that cost for rum enthusiasts. And I know it's not easy for them to do that. As they've told us, retailers are not fond of the 375 milliliter bottles.
That's right. Yeah.
So
they're making the hard choices.
Exactly. Also, they legitimately did have two of my favorite releases of the year in Pele's Fury and Jobless, which I mentioned. Yowie Strikes Back, the 17-year-old Bean Lee, was also really good.
King Kai, I didn't mention. I love King Kai.
Yeah, King Kai wasn't on my short list. I know you like that one more than I did. It's on mine. The 6-year reunion they did, I really like that one a lot. The Mookie, the Ecuador rum that you mentioned. They also had rums I didn't care for. So strangely enough, their Madeira release, the 3-year Orezinho, I did not like. Kyrie, their unaged cane juice rum from the Netherlands, I didn't like that one either. I bring those up because one of the things I appreciate about them is they take really big swings.
They do.
They're not afraid to put something out there that isn't going to be, universally praised, right? And both those rums I just mentioned have a lot of big fans, by the way. But I'm just putting that out there. Like, this isn't a producer that we just universally praise or anything. We praise the ones we like and are honest with ones that don't hit with us as well. But I appreciate that they're willing to go out on a limb for some of those releases. And then beyond that, there's everything they're doing as an importer as well, with stuff like Rosalie Bay, which we just discussed on the podcast. They're importing colors of rum. Bristol, they've helped other American IBs with distribution. And like I mentioned, they've been helpful to us with our single cast project. We're not the only ones they're helping. There's a group of guys who are rum fanatics. Some of them are patrons of the show that we've been talking with who are trying to do something similar. And they're right there as like an open book helping them. So I just really feel like they're doing so much on top of the great rums they're releasing for the quality of the overall American rum, American independent bottling scene and what we have access to. I really think if you're a rum fan, they deserve a hat tip and to try their stuff, because it's always worth going out there for.
Yeah, I was really hoping this was your pick, because I certainly share the same thoughts that you have. They have their fingers in everything. And, you know, it's clear when you talk to John and Lori that they're not in this for the money, right? I mean, I hope that they're doing okay. But, you know, this is a labor of love, as they say, and they are really trying to push rum to new heights in all the things that they're doing. So totally agree. Well worth it, and glad they are doing what they are doing. Did we want to really quickly cover some notable things we didn't try this year before we head out?
I'll rapid fire go through mine really quickly.
Yeah.
So these are my notable omissions. I mentioned the Worthy Park Overproof, the Hampton Aged 8 Marks set. I didn't get around to.
Same.
The Black Tot Masters Blender yearly release. Every time I've had one of those, they've been absolutely phenomenal. I didn't get to this year's release. Mount Gay's special column still release. I can't remember the name of it.
The Single Estate series, or the
the
other one.
There is the Single Estate one, but also the Master Blenders series. That one.
Gotcha.
Alambique Serrano Blend 6. I mentioned that, and then just in general, Colors of Rum releases. I know we're starting to get some of those in the States. I didn't get to all of those, or any of them actually. So those are mine. What about you?
A couple quick ones. Some of the ones in common. Equiano's Omanira release, hadn't tried. Funny enough, haven't had the Equipoise or Magisterium Foursquare releases. So I assume I would probably enjoy those, but haven't had them.
Equipoise is good. I bought Equipoise and really enjoyed it.
The Mount Gay Single Estate, haven't tried Series 1 or Series 2. There's that, I'm blanking on the name, Robin from the California Rum et al., that she's doing some new stuff over there, and she released a couple of things. I've heard a lot of good things. Haven't tried it yet. Hasn't really made its way over to the East Coast, I think. Urupan Sharonda's single cane varietals I'm interested in. Haven't tried that. All of the Bristol stuff, many of the Samarolis that are out there that I know are great, haven't tried. So certainly some blind spots, but that said, I think we covered the bases pretty well.
Definitely. This was a really, as I said, a hard year, a strange year, in that we were aligned on so many things. Yeah. Again, like I've said, if this is the first time you listen to this never happens. There's been one time where we've had a pick in common, I think. So anyway, it's kind of fun, though. I mean, we drink a lot of stuff together. We share a lot of rum moments together. So it would make sense that we would be aligned on a lot of things, I guess. So in a way, maybe it's surprising it hasn't happened yet. But anyway, we would love to know, everyone listening, what stood out to you this year. Send us an email, host@rumcast.com. That's HOST@rumcast.com. Or you can find us on social media. John, where can they find us?
At the Rumcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Let us know what you thought here, like Will said. And if you have your own rum Christmas song, send it to us. We'll add it to the album.
We will add it to the playlist, the Spotify playlist that's growing by the year. All right, John, this was a lot of fun, and we'll be back soon. We've got a lot more coming, more to come on the Cask project, more to come with some cool interviews we have coming up. So exciting stuff in store for the rest of 2024 and 2025. So we'll talk again soon, but until then, cheers.
Cheers.